Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Q&A for Indigenous Plant Medicine and Rituals from the Rainforest, combining healing plants with curanderismo ceremonies for physical, spiritual, and energetic well-being. I am Natalia Caraway with the Shift Network, and it's my pleasure to be your host as we explore the teachings of Adriana Ayales and address questions about her upcoming course, which begins on Monday, December 7th at 11 a.m. Pacific. If you're unable to join us live, you can still participate in this course. I will explain more about that later, but first I want to introduce my guest. Adriana Ayales is an author, educator, and rainforest herbalist from Costa Rica. She has extensively studied several healing traditions alongside master herbalists and indigenous medicine peoples for more than a dozen years. Adriana founded Anima Mundi, a successful apothecary and herbal medicine facility in Brooklyn, New York, that crafts medicine sourced from indigenous peoples, wild crafters, and honest farmers from around the world. Please join me in welcoming Adriana Ayales, who is going to share a quick meditation with us before we get started with questions. Adriana, it's so wonderful to have you with us.
So great to be here, Natalia. Thank you. So I wanted to start by doing a short meditation, just simple to tune in and ground wherever you are. So sit up straight wherever you're sitting and tune into your heart. Slow and steady, feel your breath vibrating your beautiful heart plexus. Exhale deeply. Shake anything off that's in your mind. Connect to the base of your spine. Inhale deeply and ground it out. Imagine this cord running all the way from the base of your spine to the top of your head. Keep that heart full and vibrational. And exhale. Tune into your heart axis. Tune into the field, the information in your heart. Allow it to speak and be here as we connect together. Inhale deeply one more time. Exhale, move the energy out, sweep your body. And here we are. Thank you everybody for joining today. It's such an honor to be here. And it's such an amazing day. We're here in a hurricane in Costa Rica. So here we are tuning into the power of nature and speaking all about the good things about plants and spirit. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Adriana. What a beautiful way to bring us all together in this present moment. Well, we're going to spend the rest of our time together exploring questions for Adriana as we prepare for her video course, Indigenous Plant Medicine and Rituals from the Rainforest, which again begins Monday, December 7th at 11 a.m. Pacific. I'd love to invite you to visit our website, indigenousplantmedicine.com. That's INDIGENOUS, indigenousplantmedicine.com, to learn more about Adriana's 5-module course and find a link to register. All right, now let's get started with some questions. I want to thank everyone who sent in questions ahead of time through our webcast. For those of you who are just joining us live, please feel free to type your questions into the chat and we can read those out. All right, we're going to start, Adriana, with a question submitted earlier. And I wanted to start with actually a couple similar questions that came in from folks who are just brand new to this type of work. So Amita shared, I'm a novice to this course. I don't have any prior background or knowledge. Will this course be appropriate for me? I'm a tutor, a retired physical therapist, and a yoga student.
The theme in itself and the word curanderismo sounds a little, intense to a lot of people, and it sounds something that's not really kind of like part of our everyday reality. But absolutely, the beauty about curanderismo is that it's simple. It's the art of simplicity, is the medicine of simplicity. So it's just core teachings on how to basically tune into the energetics of plants that we have even in our kitchen pantry, or things that are already perhaps growing in your backyard, and basically how to use them in a very profound way. And what I love too is that curanderismo in itself is all about like the spiritual reality of something like chamomile and rosemary, and how to use them in everyday life in a much deeper way other than what we're perhaps used to doing. So it's definitely key tools on how to integrate on a deeper level, already something that you might be doing already. So we will definitely be basic and also go deep into more advanced teachings on like the energetics of plants and also formulations, which I think is so beautiful and powerful. So it'll be ancient formulations used of the most simplest of plants, but just pairing it wisely to yield the best results.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. We also had a few questions coming in from folks wanting to make sure that they would have good access to some of the herbs that we're going to be discussing in this course. So this first question came here from April, saying, thank you, Adriana, for being a caretaker of this wisdom and sharing it with others in such a respectful way. I'm wondering, what sort of materials would you suggest we might need over the course of these 5 weeks? I live in Maine, and though I grow a lot of my own plants, my growing season is over until May.
That's a great question, actually. So that's how I was saying. I really want to tune into like the simple, even just everyday herbs that we're all very used to using. So that'll be key. So a lot of them you probably already growing or can easily be found in an apothecary nearby. Also, I will be like in the module, some of them have recipes. Some of them are a little, described and some of them are not. Like, for example, agua de Florida in our first module. I can send a little ingredient list to all you guys that are signing up so you can kind of have it ready. And you can absolutely kind of do it on the spot with me, or I will be doing it via a slideshow, but you can also kind of tune in that moment and send questions. So you can kind of feel like you can ask questions as you're doing it. So it'll be simple recipes, and a lot of it you can source. And now we will also offer alternatives. So for example, let's say ruda that's used a lot here. It's a classic plant in shamanismo. So if you don't have ruda, I will offer the alternative to North American medicine and one of those like powerful plants used, let's say, in agua de Floridas or some of the agua de Floridas. So there will be alternatives, and I'll offer that for sure as we go. So no worries.
That's wonderful. We had a couple of folks write in from Ireland as well with the same questions and saying that they had access to Western plants. So I'm sure that will bring them a lot of comfort as well.
Absolutely.
So Tamara was wondering, would you briefly discuss how to establish contact and communication and a working relationship with a plant being, or will you be going over this in the course?
Oh, yes. I love a lot of people ask that question. So there is, millions of ways to connect, and a lot of, all traditions have their own amazing techniques, basically meditation techniques to how to tune in deeply. So every class we will start with a different kind of meditation. For example, in the live class that I did, like the egg protective meditation, we will go a little bit into why that's used, for example, in protection in many different kinds of traditions and tribes within Central and South America. But we will also run through different meditational techniques throughout the course. So you can really like tune in and know which one really like speaks to you, because it's all about what you're really resonating with. So it's not like forcing something that's not really working. That way you can tune into yours. And also an invitation for you to tune in even to your own ancestry in your own way, and being like, all right, my ancestors did this. In curanderismo techniques, they do that. How can we kind of weave one and you find your own? So that's definitely something I will be pointing at several times over the course, so you can really find your own gateway into it. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Heather was wondering, what is the best way to store herbs? And she's a big fan of your rose powder. I'm wondering if you can use all of these powders and elixirs in all types of cooking.
Oh, great question. Well, for example, here where I live, it is such a problem to store herbs. Oh my goodness, like everything molds really fast, like mason jars, which is what most people love to use for storing herbs. Here, actually, they don't even work because they actually go moldy. I mean, depends where, of course, but I'm even in a cooler mountain in Costa Rica, and it still molds. So it really depends where you are. A lot of times, even like certain kind of like paper bags might even work better than like a tight sealed jar, Or if you live in a cooler climate, you're super lucky and you can close your jars. Like my jars here, I cannot even close them, or I have to use it really fast, like within a 1 or 2 months, because if not, long term, it's just, impossible. So I think the best way too is like creating your own elixir. So for example, if you do your own tinctures, or if you purchase tinctures or vinegars, like extracts or ferments, or there's so many kinds of ways to, extract the magic of plants. So I would say in that case, that's kind of easier, but it really depends on the climate you're living on. Also, like a general rule of thumb, having, like, let's say if your pantry's right next to your stove where you're cooking, all the steam, if you have tightly sealed jars, will basically ruin your herbs pretty quickly. So I know a lot of people have, like, for example, like I used to live in a place where the shelf was right over the kitchen stove. So all those spices and so were always basically soggy, plus the, jungle humidity. So it really depends literally on the space you're living in. Ideally, the shelf is away from the kitchen stove or any kind of steam or heat, and also away from light. So just try to always stay to dry conditions as much as possible and cool conditions. So away from the light and away from heat. But yeah, let me know if you can send another question. I mean, based on where you live, I'm happy to guide you based on where you're living. Yeah.
So helpful. Thank you. All right. Well, Dee wrote in asking, how can I use this work to heal my womb from grief, pain, and resentment?
Wow. Beautiful. I think I spoke about this in the protection and rituals class. So there is a lot of herbs that are used in various different kinds of rituals to heal the womb, whether it's, from like miscarriage or inability to conceive, or, there's many different kinds of potential imbalances. But a lot of these herbs can be used in different ways. So, for example, in the first course, we will talk a lot about like the energetics of how to find the right way of using plants depending on what's really going on. So basically going into the source of like where that grief is coming from. In curanderismo, there's a lot of like different, diagnosis of emotional imbalances that trigger physical imbalances. So for example, if there was some sort of susto, fright, some sort of trauma, PTSD, any kind of like connection to that might be yielding the grief, is one gateway, and that opens into all these different sets of limpias, which is techniques of cleansing the energetic imbalance. So once we know where the imbalance or the seed imbalance might be occurring and creating the pattern from the field before it becomes a physical, let's say, disease or manifestation or deeper manifestation of that disease, we will find like the limpia that's best to tune to and do over a certain period of time to cleanse that out. But it'll be a general guide, and you will be the one, essentially diagnosing yourself and asking yourself those deep questions like, where could that really have come from? Who triggered it, or what series of events triggered it? And understanding how to heal that part and creating a ritual to really pull the pattern off the field. Also in the fifth module, for example, we will be really tuning into the energetics of the mind. So how to basically rewire that subconscious pattern that might be maintaining that imbalance or grief or emotional distress to begin with. So we will go through a series, like basically starting from the seed patterning to how to help it on a subconscious level, and through the art of limpias, the techniques of cleansing. Yeah.
Great. Elva was wondering, she would love to know about some plants to help connect with loved ones in the afterlife.
Wow, I love that one. And I'm sure a lot of you will know my answer. Blue lotus is one of my favorite ones. It's a beautiful flower. It was revered a lot in Egypt, but it's also revered by the Mayans. So in Mayan rituals, for example, a lot of the blue lotus flowers and similar lily family, like the pink lotus was also used, of the lilies, but these are not actual lotus family, not the Nymphaea family, for example. The Nymphaea family, for example. They are used also in different ways, from like smudging, like cleansing fire limpias. And they're also used in teas, like very deep, rich ferment teas. A lot of the times it has fermented cacao, for example. So cacao was used as one of the primary gateways to offering the gods in order for them to allow you into the gateway of where the ancestors might be. So there's several components, it's like, what do you offer in your altar, which actually that's in the first course. What do you put in your altar, and what are you offering to your ancestors in order to tune in and open those gateways? Secondly, what plants do you use once you're in there in a state of like, let's say, trance or meditation, or however you feel comfortable being there, what plants you use in order to tune into the energetics of that seed patterning, let's say you're trying to diagnose, or the purpose as to why you're calling in your ancestors or whoever has just passed by. So if there's a plant, for example, that you're really connected to, let's say it was your grandmother that just passed, or let's say she really reminds you of a certain archetypal energy that you find in plants, then use that as one of your main tools, that once you're in and past the mind and past that gateway, using it as one of the main sources to connect to her or he. And that's what they used to do a lot in curanderismo, you know, like we all in a way resemble plants. We all have our own complex personalities, and every plant has a very complex personality. So who can you match once you're in and do your, you know, system of reverence and ritual and altar once you're in there and outside of there? I hope that makes sense. I don't know if that's too complex. But another plant that I also love using is rosemary. Rosemary is actually an amazing one because it really reveals the clarity as to the messages that you might be really feeling at the other side. Rosemary really helps channel the information that you might be receiving once you're there. So those two I use them together actually as a tea and also for smudging. Yeah.
That was beautiful, and I thought it made perfect sense. Thank you, Adriana. Well, Great. Speaking of blue lotus, Rick was wondering, do you know some plants for dreaming?
Oh, yes. My favorite topic, always. So lucid dreaming, you know, there's many angles you can approach it, and it all depends on what stage of the lucid dreaming process you're really feeling like you're at. If you're 100% new to it, I would say like just base nervines like passion flower, chamomile, and skullcap are excellent ones to start with. Here in Costa Rica, for example, and in curanderismo, they use tilo a lot. Tilo is one nervous system decompressant. There's also a lot of other, you know, really relaxing plants all over the world. And here is where I will always offer alternatives to whatever is near you. So it doesn't have to be something like far away or difficult to get. Once you're really in the whole experience, or you're realizing that you're waking up in the dream, you're, you know, having little, let's say, signals here and there that you're really able to even, you know, control the smallest of ways once you're in there. Mucuna is one of my favorite ones. Mucuna is actually identical to the neurotransmitters that are already in our pineal gland, for example. So in the tiniest of amounts, you know, it's not psychedelic on any level, but it has DMT, for example, pinoline, which are another two of the most active, let's say, psychedelic components within your pineal gland that are actually expressed in lucid dreaming experience, or let's say when you're in taking other master plant medicines, or just having a, you know, incredibly insightful experience. These are the neurotransmitters that we release in those states of like, you know, spiritual ecstasy. And so mucuna actually resembles in the tiniest of amounts, that same makeup in our pineal gland. So I think that's so brilliant. You know, here in Costa Rica, it grows like a wild weed, and it's actually even used to like fix nitrogen in the soil. So you can kind of find it everywhere. But if it's somehow available to you, I definitely recommend that. Another excellent one is ashwagandha, also a great nervous system decompressant. It's an adaptogen, so it really regulates the hypothalamus, as well as tuning in the pineal gland when all the other neurotransmitters in association to the HPA axis, which is like the whole endocrine balance that you want to get once you're in the lucid dreaming explosive experience. So those are just a few, but we'll definitely get deeper into those in the 5th module. Mm-hmm.
What a great list. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Cobb was wondering, will you be teaching shamanic rituals as well?
Yes. So it will be definitely a focus on plants, you know, plants to use in ritual in particular. So we won't go necessarily deep into actual, like, let's say, ritual processes, but I will certainly go through a few. For example, Olympias to cleanse the house. There is these mandalic rituals that Mayans used to use that you basically organize the house in like a pentagram in a way. There's also hexagram organization. So I'll show definitely in the slideshows like ways to place certain offerings depending on the limpia you're actually focusing on in order to create, let's say, the deepest and most profound ritual just within your own home, for example, just to clear energy, whether it's just to like, you know, renew the energy or cleansing bad energy. So definitely maps. They had these amazing maps on how to place things, almost like feng shui in a way, on where to place things in order to create the optimal energetics in your own home. So that'll be one way. I will also run through different altar offerings. So how to like burn herbs, how to even like infuse a candle with certain plants in order to have that candle burn certain intentions. So yeah, just basic ones, but primarily plants to use within rituals that you might already be doing will be the main aim. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Nicolina wrote, can you use medicinal mushrooms like reishi, chaga, etc. daily, or should you take some breaks?
Definitely take breaks. I think they've become so popular. Adaptogens have exploded in the wellness world, and they are very sacred plants. The majority of them are actually very hard to find or grow. They don't have like extreme abundance, let's say like a Tulsi, although Tulsi is an adaptogen. For example, Tulsi is one of those few adaptogens you can actually take every day. And even nature is signaling that to us. It's growing everywhere. You can grow it even like in your kitchen, for example, and it will be pretty abundant just even in there, no matter where you're living. Say with gynostemma, for example, another one of the few adaptogens that grows in abundance. That's also an incredible longevity plant and also immune protective and beyond. So in that way, like I recommend the ones that already naturally grow in abundance to be abundantly found within your everyday, wellness rituals. But for master, mushrooms and roots and leaves that are not easily found, I would say, take your time with it. Let's say every 3 months, depending on what you feel and when you look back into your, into your rituals and into like the progression of your longevity, the progression of your immune system, what can you tweak and maybe add other ingredients and not just stick to the same ones to beef up your immune system? So I think for many reasons, not only for sustainability reasons, but also for, creating a variety in your immune system. So it kind of creates, different and deepening parts for your immune system, really create resilience on a very deep level. Because it's so easy, even the gut bacteria in our gut, let's say you're drinking the same reishi long term, your gut bacteria needs something, once it gets used to it and adapted to it, you need something else to really continue beefing it up. And actually, we'll speak about that in the third module, about how to really use these plants on an emotional level, So what are you really needing? How can you tweak your formula in order to kind of create a variety and more, that texturized experience within your immune system to create even deeper resilience with these plants? Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Natasha is wondering about harvesting, and is there a ritual around harvesting?
Yes, that is so beautiful. I think especially when you're foraging, like I love to forage in the mountains and very mindfully and ethically, only taking what you really need, not depleting certain sites. I think it's so beautiful to work with plants that are already within your vicinity, creating a ritual around that. They're already creating the environment with you, So using the plants when you're harvesting it, always asking if you can harvest in that moment. And surprisingly, a lot of times you're really tuned in and not like just like, oh my goodness, I found this arnica patch. I'm going to, harvest everything, and go wild because you're too excited. But no, it's like having that mindfulness and really listening first and speak to the plant. Truly, plants speak back to you. They really, really do. I know a lot of people feel like they don't have that tune in process, so they're not deep into their meditation. But honestly, even the people that are least, in the meditational world, the ones that are least in that practice can actually really tune in spontaneously and have these incredible experiences listening to what plants are saying. So if you find something in the wild or even something that, in your farmer's market area and you see something, like really ask it, do I need this right now? Can I consume you? Can I really become one with you? As if you're really meeting a friend, how can you build that trust and that relationship first before just intaking what your mind believes you should be intaking? So we will definitely be talking a lot about that because I feel like it's so important to really tune in to what you're actually needing and how you can really harvest in a very mindful way and learning how to like sharpen your skills to really tune in and listen.
So powerful. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Lori is curious about the Olympias that you plan to share, wondering about crystals, eggs, herbs, oils, etc.
Great. So we will be going through the main limpias. There are so many kinds of limpias. There is, depending on the emotional imbalanced diagnosed by a curandero, for example, empacho, bilis, mal aire, mal de ojo, daño, hexes, all these different kinds of like emotional imbalances are usually appointed to a certain limpia. So we will go through like the main traditional emotional imbalances, like the ones I just mentioned. I've talked a lot about susto already, for example. Empacho is also a different one that's really common. It's like when there is like too much of a concentration of a certain emotional energy that needs to be released. So when there's like this like almost like stuffed feeling of an emotion. Mal aire is when there's certain, for example, bad winds. They say mal aire literally translates to bad wind. So when there's like a certain wind that comes into the body, even Chinese medicine speaks on this. And it's either because it's sent by someone on an energetic level or because there is spirits of the forest that actually sometimes come into the body, or it is believed in that way. They come into the body and reside, not always in a positive way. So limpias that help not only move the mal aire out of the body will be definitely talked about. We will also talk about limpia specifically for susto, which is something that's very common, especially nowadays with the whole, 2020 craziness that all of us have experienced one way or another. And also, how to basically protect the body in that way. Mal de ojo is another classic one. It's classically called evil eye, but it's so much more deeper than just that. Mal de ojo is like even when you're in a place of like, let's say a lot of jealousy or competition or very close friendships that are not really contributing to the highest expression of yourself, and where it's hard to cut the energetic cords of that, there's actually plants used specifically for that to help you basically make the transition either out of those friendships or to create a renewing transformation through those friendships if the possibility and potential is there. So we will definitely talk about that. Also in curanderismo, hexes is something that's very spoken about. And it's funny because it's not really spoken about by other like kind of main culture, like in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine is not classically spoken about. But hexes here is a very real thing, So a lot of people, let's say, commission the bad witches or the wizards, los brujos, and they really try to send, let's say, some sort of bad arrows. They call it like flechas and flechas venenosas into other people. So basically, how to create again the plants of power and protection. Some of them that I mentioned in the last class we did online. How to really remove these hexes out, whether it was sent by someone or again just spirits within certain spaces that might go in. So plants that really protect the field. And so those are limpias also for the house. How to protect the house, using the mandala designs to create that feng shui space, to create a grid in your house that's completely covered in light and protected with plants and rituals and beyond. So we will definitely be covering that. And that's honestly one of my favorite subjects because I worked with several curanderos that really focused almost only exclusively on hexes. And there's so many crazy stories. There's just things that it's even hard to believe it even exists. And we will definitely talk more on those because those are quite extensive. But, how to really diagnose your space in your body to remove these imbalances. I went all over the place with that question, but I hope that kind of narrows a little bit on the main subject you were asking. Yeah.
That was great, and certainly getting us excited for your course. So, Alex was wondering, is this similar to an herbalism course? So maybe you could share how it's going to be similar and how it might be a bit different.
So this is definitely a little different than the classic herbalism course. We won't be talking necessarily on like the base herbalism, like, breakdowns of, let's say, plants, certain categories of plants. We won't be necessarily speaking on that kind of like Herbalism 101 classes, although I will bring up, let's say, like nervines, a classic nervous system, decompressant plants that might help in the process of, let's say, specific diagnosis of disease and releasing that. It won't be also the basics in the sense of Western herbalism. It will be the basics on more a curanderismo perspective. So more of an indigenous, more like grassroots type of home pharmacy techniques for spiritual and physical reasons, and techniques to just like, create that resilience on a, mind, body, wellness, truly level. So it will be slightly different. There's so many kinds of herbalism courses though. So this is definitely more on the esoteric, primal, indigenous sense, not so classic botanical sense like most other systems of herbalism target. Yeah. Great, perfect clarification. Thank you so much.
Well, we are here with Adriana Ayales learning about her course, Indigenous Plant Medicine and Rituals from the Rainforest, which begins on Monday, December 7th. I want to invite everyone to visit indigenousplantmedicine.com for all the details and to register. All right, we've got our next question here from Mirabelle. Mirabelle wrote, I felt great benefit from smoke cleansing before, but I realized I haven't been doing it as intentionally as you taught. I loved the pre-clearing meditation. How much of a difference does it really make to be more intentional with it?
It makes a big difference, because where your attention is where your energy goes. So how you set your intention, whether it's making your medicine, smudging, or any kind of technique you're using, smoke cleansing, it's important to really set the direction of your energy. So if there's too much of a generalized open sense and you're just like, I just want to cleanse on a base level, sometimes it won't even be felt on such a deep, truly deep level in your spirit, because there's no direction to where the energy is going. So I always recommend in smoke cleansing, for example, when you're closing your eyes and you're really burning your herbs around you and you're sweeping the energy off of you, also calling in energy, not only is the movement of your hands, also the movement of the visualized energy you're creating in your mind's eye is just as powerful. So wherever you're really focusing on is where your energy will be taken to. And some plants really create that altering experience. Some plants, just by the smell of them, you can already feel a little bit of an alteration. There's so many classics. A lot of people use white sage, palo santo, but there's so many herbs you can really use to exalt that experience on such a profound level. And every single one of them creates a different, kind of frequency and vibration. So depending on how you're really feeling and what your intention really is the proper plant to pair in order to create the best smoke cleansing experience. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful, thank you. Esmeralda was wondering, besides the herbs that you shared for dreaming, do you have any rituals for working with your dreams?
Yes. Oh my goodness. There's so many. So one of the ones that I really love actually recently is when you're laying in bed. So I love to always dim the lights, kind of just create the space, no devices nearby. At least I always recommend like detox from your tablet, phone, or whatever you use at least an hour before to really set in the zone, and dim the lights, like right at basically when we rise in the morning, when we go to sleep at night is exactly where the frequency and like the brain waves that we're in create the shift. So you're entering into your subconscious mind way like deeper in that moment versus, let's say, in your everyday high beta frequency brainwave, which is during the day. So at night, you're already dimming the lights. That's kind of like helping release the melatonin. You go to bed. And I love visualizing my hands, so I stay like kind of like with my low lids, looking down in a very meditational mood. And you're looking at your hands. And I love to visualize light going into them. When you kind of start falling asleep, you also start visualizing the light going into the rest of your body, going up and down your spine, kind of like the meditation we just did. Base it in the base of your spine, even if you're laying down. You can also be sitting down if you prefer that. And just going into that really deep and relaxing experience. In that moment, I also love to be drinking like, a nervine tea. So a lot of the relaxing plants, anything that you're really loving. I've been really loving kava lately with ashwagandha, for example. We're actually growing kava here, so it's pretty exciting to have it in Costa Rica. So, use whatever is around you. And I'm a big fan of that. So whatever nervines you have within you and, within your space, use those. So just to really, really, really relax and create the space, the bridge to go deeper into activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and restoration. So in that moment, when you're visualizing, just be sure to like try to stay awake. Keep visualizing, even if you're passing out and you're so exhausted or whatever, just keep visualizing whatever your intention is in that moment. I like to visualize the light in my body because it kind of keeps me, not so, exhausted and passing out and just kind of checking out. So in that moment, once you start feeling like you're seeing a lot of things, you kind of like go into your dream without even realizing it. Let's say characters come up or symbols. In that moment is when you really ask yourself, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? And that is the key to sometimes just waking up in that moment. And I really love that one. It's so simple. It's a classic in a lot of lucid dreaming circles. But the whole point is that creating the reminder in a space where you're already about to pass out is what kind of helps your consciousness stay slightly awake as you're navigating into your subconscious mind. So that is just a quick one.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Adriana. Okay, well, next we had Marcel write in after your introductory event. And Marcel was wondering how, when you referenced cleansing in a clockwise and counterclockwise direction, could you explain a little bit more about this?
Yes. So in classic smoke cleansing techniques and also hands-on healing, you even see this in systems like Reiki and other traditions. So when you're empowering a thought, let's say you're having a great day and you're visualizing your future self, you're like, I am really going to manifest this, this, and this for myself. I'm ready to let go. So just even if you didn't have a smudging bundle or any kind of cleansing herb with you, or for barridas too, if you're not really tuning into that, or you don't have that, you just tune in a clockwise motion what you're empowering. So for example, if you're just using your hand, you're like really moving your hand in a clockwise position over your body and certain regions of your body that might need energy. Or let's say where you want to be storing this beautiful manifestation and affirmation in your body, use clockwise position. If you're having a bad day and you're just having like negative thoughts come up and you're just not feeling good and it's impossible to shake it off, and it's just one of those days, which happens to absolutely everybody, try to counterclockwise the energy out of you. So you're just really moving through your energetic field in a counterclockwise way. So it can be also if you feel like you have something in your body where you're storing that emotional, imbalance, difficulty, or negativity, just move it in counterclockwise, whether it's your mind's eye, with your smudging bundle, or any kind of limpia you're choosing to do. That's super helpful. Same with disease. So for example, if curanderos classically, let's say if you have cancer or more, acute or chronic diseases, they take it out of the body in a counterclockwise way. So you don't want to go clockwise because you're empowering the disease. You want to disempower the disease by going backwards. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, great sense. Thank you. All right. Brenda was wondering, do plants have different strengths depending on how they're stored, such as dried, in oil, frozen, etc., versus fresh?
Yes, 100%. So depending on every single plant, it basically varies. But there's like a general rule of thumb of it's like a root, a leaf, a flower, or let's say a mushroom, and also techniques on how you want to take the medicine out. So like I was saying, sometimes like storing, depending on where you live, storing in the tight sealed jars is actually not really the best way. It really depends how long you're using it for, how long you think you're going to have that for. If you have like a huge harvest of something and you're not going to use it within the first few months, then kind of understanding how you're going to process that medicine is really key. So for example, if you have a tincture, which is kind of like classic what a lot of people do, you just macerate it in alcohol. That's one of the best ways to keep herbs fresh, because you're basically, let's say, whether it's fresh dried or fresh picked, you want to put it straight into certain menstruums of alcohol to preserve the energetics. I'm a big fan of that because you can use it long term. Tinctures last up to 10 years sometimes, depends on the percentage of the alcohol, of course. So all of those things are really key, which we'll definitely be covering in the course, because I want everyone to feel like they can do medicine making techniques without feeling like too complicated, and your herbs are not going to go bad on you depending on what you find. And also, like, for example, roots, roots kind of store in a tricky way. So a lot of people like to extract roots in ferments to kind of like activate the constituents out of it with a ferment. So that's a great way to really withdraw them. Let's say you're doing like a ginger beer or a vinegar or even just a kombucha. It's a great way. Or you just really dry it in the most ideal conditions, whether it's a dehydrator, solar dehydrator, or just straight in the sun. For example, it's really important to really dry it properly. So no little bit of moisture stays in there and then it molds and then it's in your jar all moldy within like 3 months. So those are such key ways to do it. But I think the processing of medicine is what's so vital, and that kind of keeps your medicine long term. So same with oils. If you have certain flowers you harvested, let's say you have a bunch of calendula, and calendula oil is so amazing. And it's also a great auric sealer. You want to kind of, let's say, use it for that purpose, depending on what your intention is. So you can dry the flowers, or you can do them fresh into an oil and then use the sunlight to really extract it, or even if it's through heat. For oils, depending, again, how long you're wishing to store it, there's some traditions in the rainforest that even, like, for example, extract fresh flowers in oil, which is usually not ideal because of the moisture content going into the oil. But if you're using that oil, let's say within 1 month, it's okay. If you're using it long term, then you want it dried. So yeah, there's a lot of details that definitely need to be covered on that, but we will go through the basics of like the classic things people love to have in their home pharmacy, you know, so oils, tinctures, and salves will be definitely covered. And also, like I was saying, the agua de Florida, so also mists and like waters that you put on yourself for cleansing, and also just like for toners for the body and for the skin. So yeah, if there's any particular medicine techniques actually for anyone that's really joining that you would really love for me to cover, definitely tell me, and we can add it in there in one of our activities so I can share those with you too.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we will have time for some more questions, but before we take those, I just want to share some details about indigenous plant medicine and rituals from the rainforest. We are inviting you to join Adriana for this 5-week course as we prepare powerful plant remedies and learn about rituals to help heal dis-ease, connect with your higher consciousness, and enjoy expanded well-being. You will learn ancient practices and remedies for purification, protection, and strengthened immunity, and raise your vibration, dispel negativity, and reconnect to your spirit. When you ritualize your life with these ancient practices and indigenous plants, herbs, flowers, and fungi, you'll move into a greater state of health to live a more grounded life, physically, emotionally, and energetically. This 5-module course takes place on Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, beginning December 7th. You will receive audio and video replays, transcripts, and any other materials through your course homepage. I'd also like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on our courses, giving you until December 14th to make sure you absolutely love it. As an added option, all participants are welcome to connect via a private community group that we host on Facebook so that you can stay connected with one another throughout the course. Everyone who registers receives the Indigenous Plant Medicine and Rituals from the Rainforest bonus collection. We have so many great bonuses here, so let me share what is included. First off, you're going to receive a really special video dialogue with Adriana and Rosemary Gladstar. This is titled Herbal Wisdom for Challenging Times. And next we have a video dialogue titled Peruvian Shamanism and the Path of the Ashaninka. This is a dialogue between Adriana and Peruvian ayahuasquero Don Jose Campos. You will also receive a video dialogue with Adriana and Rosita Arvigo. This is titled Rainforest Home Remedies, Common Plants Used by Traditional Healers of Belize. And you're going to get something else really amazing. Everyone else who signs up for the course will receive a 20% discount to Adriana's online herbal apothecary, which is animamundiherbals.com. Now, when you register by midnight Pacific on Tuesday, November 17th, you will receive an additional bonus. This is titled Herbs for Deep Sleep and Lucid Dreaming, a video dialogue with Adriana Ayales and David Crow. I'd love to share a little bit more about this because I know we had a lot of questions on the topic of dreaming today. So in this video, you'll get to hear Adriana speak to the powers of the pineal gland, the subconscious mind, and herbs known to activate lucid dreaming and extrasensory perception. She also explores both ancient and modern day practices that facilitate lucid dreaming, and it introduces herbs that tone the organs of perception and awaken the subconscious mind. There are so many great gems in this bonus package, so just wanted to cover that for everyone. All right, wonderful. So we'll go ahead and move on to a few more questions. This one came from Natalie asking, are there any sorts of herbal teas that you like to use after Olympias to solidify the process?
Yes, absolutely. And again, it really depends on the intention of your limpia. So there's different kinds of limpias that we were talking, like water limpias and fire limpias are the classic ones. There's also air limpias, for example, grounding limpias. So depending on your intention, that's how we can check out the kind of herbs that we can really play with in that moment, you know? So for example, the protection and rituals one that we were covering, a lot of classics, even like, let's say rosemary and thyme, are often used as teas, not only internal, but also external, like baños florales, which are medicinal herb baths. So that really helps integrate, for example, on a protective level. It really protects the energetic field and also seals the aura. So they're called like auric sealers in curanderismo. So it can be, baños florales doesn't mean you have to really, let's say, macerate yourself into the herbal tea, but it can also be like splashing the body with the tea as you're continuing your intention and really sealing the body after. You know, so it's not just like splattering and being like, oh, it's done. You're really continuing the process by sealing the energy. So those herbs are really key. Also, like calendula, like I was just mentioning, is a really classic one used as a tea, also for bathing and also as baños florales, meaning for like water splashing, auric mists in a way to kind of continue seal the body. A lot of plants that are also highly aromatic. This is a great general rule of thumb for protective limpias, for example. So aromatic plants that are really high in resins are great to kind of like generally use. So even let's say there's a lot of pine around you, let's say you're in a northern area. So pine is a great one for smudging and also for cleansing and also for teas and baños florales and beyond. The resin itself, of course, and also the actual leaf itself for burning if you're doing barridas and also for smoke cleansing. So those are just a few.
Sounds great. Cobb was wondering if you could share any recommendations for a skincare routine or any favorite beauty secrets.
Oh, yeah, my favorite. I really love, that's going to be a really fun module because I really want to go into recipes of beautiful oils you can make at home. So whether it's face oils, it can also be just body oils. Also lotions, like in Rainforest traditions, lotions is a really big thing because there's a lot of great, you know, creamy, delicious sources you can use. But again, this can also transcribe to whatever is kind of easily available to you too. So I love, for example, infusing in oils, different beauty herbs, such as like a classic that a lot of you always ask for is Heshu Wu. Although Heshu Wu is not something that grows naturally, or it's not native to the rainforest on this side of the world, it's native to China, for example, or in that area in general. You can grow Heshu Wu even in upstate New York. You know, like I was even seeing people in the Hudson Valley growing it, although it's not ideal because you need kind of like older roots, for example. It's such a well-known beauty herb that a lot of people just use it no matter what. Even the leaves are often used, for example. So that is a beautiful one that I love using because it's, you know, well known for the skin. So a lot of people, I mean, for the hair. So a lot of people do hair washes, which we'll cover too with eggs even. But if you're vegan, I understand, no problem. We can also use like flax oil, which is something that's also used traditionally in all of these areas and everywhere in the world, basically. Flax oil is kind of like a classic wherever it grows, obviously, as a beauty base oil tonic. We will also be using blue lotus, which is also a classic beauty herb in Mayan traditions for bathing, which is extremely luxurious because it's obviously not so easy to find, but they also use it in that sense of like deeply tuning in. And that's what I love, like beauty rituals in native traditions is not the same as like, let's say what we think of. They really see it as like a longevity plant. So it's like plants that really give that really deeply rejuvenative energy to the body. So like true vitality. And a lot of these plants too are actually naturally like sexually activating. Not that you're going to get, you know, let's say aroused by just using them on a beauty level, which you can, of course, depending on the dosage. But the whole point is that it really regenerates that part of our where we hold our sexual energies, where a lot of our creativity flows out of. So a lot of these plants can be used in that way. Like one that I really love is Mirapuama, which is classic to Central and South American rainforest. It's really used in that way as well. It's like a vitality tonic, and there's some studies of it being potentially adaptogenic. And it's perhaps because of that deeply restorative and rejuvenative energy that it has to the body. So we will be talking about that one for sure, which I know is not so common in North America, but you'll get to meet a new plant. We will also be doing the classics, like rosemary, again, is a great one for the hair. Also for just cleansing the body, and for face washes is a great toner. And yeah, so a lot more. Stay tuned for that one for sure.
Can't wait. Thank you so much. Okay, next up we had Wilson, who wrote, I'm particularly interested in preparations for cleansing anomalies in the energy field and the cleansing of spaces. Is this something you will include in the course?
Yes. So that also is a pretty big topic, and it falls under that kind of what I was just explaining a little bit into the hexes realm. So in that realm, not only does that mean, like, let's say if somebody is sending bad energy, like as one of the diagnoses in curanderismo, it also means like when there is just a deeply seated pattern that needs to be removed, like you just said, like anomalies. So there's a lot of master plants that are used for that. For example, cat's claw, uña de gato, is used, which is very famous for its like anti-cancerous chemistry. It's also like anti-leukemic and anti-tumoral, and it's a powerful blood purifier. And it's gotten really popular for all the studies in those regions. But on a very deep energetic level, that plant's actually used for that sense, like how to restore the blood and DNA on a deep-seated like level. So like deep-seated patterning. How can that come? So cat's claw is classically used for that. Again, in all shape and form. It can be a tea, which is pretty astringent and not the best tasting tea, but it doesn't matter. If it does the amazing work that it does, great. But also a note on that, actually, like, isn't it amazing that on a scientific level, it's been discovered to restore DNA, truly, like damaged DNA. And since ancient times, shamans have been using it literally to restore ancestral patterning that has been damaging to the emotional body, So these parallels, ancient discoveries just in a very different and poetic language, now being found in scientific research, for example, is beautiful. So anyways, back to the anomalies. That's a classic one. Another one that's being used for that is pau de arco. The flowers and the inner bark are classically used for those deep-seated energetic, patterns that might be stuck or not, needing to go into fruition or completely removed. So again, it really depends on the kind of limpia the plant is being used and how it's being administered as well internally, and also how the shaman is basically conducting the energy when using those plants during those limpias. So we will definitely cover that in the first course.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, next up we had a question from Carolina. Carolina wrote, as you touched on earlier, you spoke about gut health. So Carolina's writing, I'm especially interested in the approach of curanderismo for gut health and gut-related issues, such as skin problems, hormonal issues, and of course, all the gut-brain axis concerns like stress, anxiety, or even depression. Is this something we will consider during the course?
Yes. So we will definitely cover the base findings on the microbiome and just gut health and how that translates into, mental health, the brain gut axis. So we will definitely cover the scientific discoveries, but more than anything, how they pursue that. Like I was just saying, the scientific discoveries proving these ancient shamanic ways of understanding these deep connections in our organs, for example. So within curanderismo, for example, the emotional body is said to be held in the gut. And it's not something, it's not something new. A lot of us have heard about this, the feeling in our gut, connect to our intuition. And so many systems and traditions around the world have spoken about this, like the emotional body expressing itself through the gut. So we will go through the foods being used specifically to purge certain emotional energy. So it's very simple, though, and that's what I love. In curanderismo, it is not complex. There's no complex dietary, let's say, regimes, or there is no deeply, there's no food pairings that are abnormal. Everything is very intuitive and simple. And that's what I like, how we can go back. It's almost slightly microbiotic in that way, because it's all about how to go into the simplicity of using just single foods while you're doing an emotional purge coupled with a limpia. So dietas is something that's very commonly said. Dieta just means diet, but in the curanderismo sense, it means that whole emotional purge and tuning in that you're doing. And depending on what's being prescribed to you, a food is being given to you. So dietas is not just for example, a lot of these ayahuasca circles and ceremonies, everybody's on their dieta. And yes, these dietas are specific protocols to cleanse the emotional body and spiritual body in order to be able to receive the greatest vision possible within the consumption of that particular plant medicine. But it is so much more than that. So, for example, bobinsana, it is a classic plant used here to sharpen psychic skills. It is a very intuitive plant. It's also a lot of its sister plants are being used for helping depressive disorders and just that kind of more of emotional imbalance. But also when you're being given a bobinsana dieta, for example, for you to just really sharpen those skills, if that's your intention, certain foods will be coupled with that to create that whole psychic let's say, ability by decongesting certain parts of the body and facilitating that sight. Because you cannot just drink Bowie and Sana and let's say you're eating a diet and you might be having an ingredient that's like getting in the way from you actually, removing the block that might be there for whatever reason it is there. And so this helps us tune into the plant on a deeper level. Going back to actually one of the other questions, this is one of the best ways to tune into that plant and what that plant's actually trying to say to you by removing certain ingredients that is coupled with the intention and the plant being administered or prescribed by the curandero specifically. So that is a huge world, but we will cover as much as possible within that course because there's so much to see. And I know the digestive system is something very fascinating to a lot of people. So I will do my best to have that class be as beefy as possible and yet going into the basics on like what foods trigger certain emotions according to curanderismo in itself in general and certain practices. Yep.
Fantastic. What a wealth of knowledge, Adriana. Thank you so much. I would love to ask you, what are you most looking forward to sharing in this class with those who are ready to take the journey with you?
Oh, well, all of them is truly like every single module is truly like a precious part of my life, and every single, tradition that I've gotten to study with, like really treat all these, it's like a whole cosmology, and every single part of this is like a whole world in itself. So I'm really, truly excited to like dive in to each part and really trying to go as deep as possible. Yet I want you, for those of you that are new to herbalism and these techniques, to feel like you understand and it's not too deep, too fast. So we will definitely go, basic and also deep for those of you really wanting to like really deepen your energetic curanderismo skills within your practice. But truly one of my two of my most favorite subjects is what we were just speaking on the spiritual nutrition, the components of plant and foods being used to trigger certain intentions and also to open up certain gateways in the body, as well as the pineal gland, which I think is just fascinating, especially with all the studies now with the whole neuroplasticity and all the, science behind the gut-brain connection and also the heart-brain connection. So the fourth and fifth modules are my favorite because it's just so deep, specifically because of the confirmation on the scientific level based on these ancient traditions. So I'm really excited to walk you through those two connections. Although I'm a very more traditional and folk herbalist than, let's say, medical and clinical, I think it's really beautiful to see the mirrors of both worlds so deeply. And that's definitely going to be the whole course, like scientific world mending with this ancient shamanic world. So I'm excited to go through all of it. It's going to be great.
Amazing, Adriana. We can't wait for your course. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us and remind you that Indigenous Plant Medicine and Rituals from the Rainforest begins on Monday, December 7th. Again, we invite you to visit indigenousplantmedicine.com. That's INDIGENOUS, indigenousplantmedicine.com. This is where you can learn more and register for the course. And a reminder, if you do register by midnight on November 17th, you'll receive this special bonus of Herbs for Deep Sleep and Lucid Dreaming. This is a video dialogue with Adriana and David Crow. Adriana, this has been such a wonderful time together. You had so much amazing knowledge to share with us. Do you have any final words for our listeners today?
So great to be here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I know these times are crazy and difficult in so many ways, but I just want to be sure that this is just another tool in your basket on how to really tune in and learn about a whole new cosmology and world that is perhaps within your ancestry or not, but just to understand these amazing techniques to really tune into the body in such a beautiful and unique way. And also how to use herbs to really empower our immune system and our mind and our emotional health, So I feel like all of us can really use all these different aspects that we will be covering. So I'm really looking forward to walking through this journey with you. And I also want to let you all know that I will also be available in some of the Facebook groups. So if there's any particular questions that come up, I will definitely be answering them. Same with via our Instagram or social platforms. Like if you have any particular questions regarding things that we'll be covering, we and my team will be definitely available to help. So yeah, and also for consultations, I know a lot of you were asking, they might be available, but I also have a lot of herbalists that are so fantastic that can work with me and online. So you really facilitate the experience. So you really feel like you're finding what's really true to you within the plant world. So I want you to feel like it's safe, non-toxic, and wonderful, and just tools, again, to really nourish your inner and outer landscape. So thank you for really joining, and I will see you soon, hopefully.
Beautiful, Adriana. Thank you again. It's been such a pleasure to be with you.
So good. Thank you, Natalia, for being here.
My absolute pleasure. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. On behalf of all of us here at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or one in the future.